This is the AWS CloudFormation console where we now create the stacks. Each of these are stacks, and those stacks contain many different resources. There must be one or more resources to call it a stack. So for me to create a new CloudFormation stack, well, I just need to say create new, and then I say new resources, or I can import resources, and then I can choose how am I creating those resources or that stack of mine. I can choose an existing stack template that I have. Maybe I need to browse somewhere, like upload a file or something like that, or that stack already exists inside Amazon S3, so on and so forth. I can also use a sample template which already exists within AWS. Actually, we're gonna use that because it's simple and straightforward. Or you can also build a stack using an infrastructure composer where you drag and drop different components like VMs, security groups, Route 53, so on and so forth. While you are dragging and dropping that, it creates a YAML or JSON template for you that you can now use for creating your stack. But to make it simple, let's just use a template here. Let's just choose maybe a WordPress blog. Okay, so that's a WordPress blog we want to create. And then let's move forward. Hopefully everything was selected there. Let's name this one as WordPress-01 in case we create 02, 03, 04. Let's put in some parameters that are now required by this particular stack. The DB name, the DB password, the DB root password, and then we have the DB user here, which by the way is it's a string with a no echo attribute, which means that it doesn't show, it simulates as if it's a password. We have some of the instances here. Maybe let's choose T2 medium to make it faster. We have another parameter here which is of a type, and this type is of a SSH pair. So let me select that one. And we also have a SSH source location for my security group. It's also a string as well. And then let me click next. And then of course there are a couple of things we can do as well, like if you do not have permissions to create the resources that are created by the stack, you can be given a role that you can now assume as part of the creation. But if you do have permissions to create all of the resources, there is no need for the role. On stack failure, what's going to happen? By default, it's going to delete all of the resources, even those that were successful, but then leave the stack for you to delete it yourself. You can have a policy that will govern access in terms of deleting or modifying the stack. Next is we review what you have chosen, make sure of the parameters, and then if you are happy about all of that, you go ahead and submit this into CloudFormation now. During that process, it is going to go ahead and create all of the resources. We have events here. So events show you all of the events that are happening now. So the stack is being created. That is the actual stack initiated by me, the user. And then we have security group that is being created. After security group, of course, we have many other resources like your actual web server is currently being created, and it's putting together everything that you actually want. The stack, what does the stack look like actually? Let me just show you the stack here. If you go under template for this a stack of ours we're creating, here is a template. It also gets saved directly on CloudFormation. You get to see it. It's quite a lot of interesting stuff about this. Let me just scroll down to the most interesting ones that we're going to touch later on. We have a resource, which is the security group, and then the second one is the EC2 instance. The security group is being used within the instance to open the firewall. On the EC2 instance, we are using AWS CloudFormation init, where you can actually use CloudFormation as a config management tool, where you can actually install other packages, like you want to configure files, you want to install packages using the yum command directly on a Linux machine, and these are the packages we're installing. We want to configure the files and set up the content of the file directly on CloudFormation, so on and so forth. It's very fascinating. You can literally use CloudFormation as a config management tool to actually log into the instance and further install packages, configure users, file system, so on and so forth. And of course, for the instance itself, we have other configurations here, like what is the Amazon machine image, and this is found from the mapping that is directly among the top there. And if you're in this region, we need to get a particular AMI, and which also fits within a particular architecture that we have chosen. And then we have the instance type. How big is the instance? Using the reference function, we can be able to collect the parameter that was passed by the user, which you might remember it was a T2 medium. We are taking it and sending it to the instance type of, which is now one of the properties of EC2. And then we have a key pair name, security group, which is created above. We're using it here. And then we have the user data. User data is the script that gets run first or once when you create an EC2 instance. It's a way of bootstrapping your EC2 instance. So in this case, we are making sure that the AWS CFN bootstrap package, that's the CloudFormation bootstrapping package, is installed and updated. And then we're going to run some of these config sets. This config set allows us to be able to install all of the packages, configure file system, and the files for our web server, which is going to be our WordPress application. After running that, we want to capture the $, which is the return code on Linux from the previous command. So this command runs the CFN init, and it ends here. And then this side, we are collecting the return code, of which we expect it to be 0. If it's 0, means you are successful. We're passing this code into CloudFormation. So technically, our EC2 instance will stop here and run all of that until successful. Then it's going to send this signal into CloudFormation. Only when that is done, then we are going to be able to see this particular stack as fully completed in terms of running. Now that means that we have now fully ran all of the underlying packages. When it's done, we also have an output here, which also gives us a link directly into our WordPress application running on our EC2 instance. So if I open this link directly on my new tab here, guess what? We now have a new EC2 instance, and inside the instance, we have installed the PHP, MySQL database, HTTPD, so on and so forth. And it's a complete WordPress server just using CloudFormation. And then from here onwards, I can log in now and complete the configurations, and then my users will have access into my blogging website. It's as simple as that. So I've created this now, and I want to update it so there can be modifications that come later on. So do remember, modifications must not be done out of band. You must always stick within a particular template you have created before. I want to then update the stack, but I want to use the existing templates. Let's say maybe I want to change the EC2 instance. So if I come to the stack here and look at the resources, you're gonna see there's an EC2 instance, which is the VM. So if I open there, this is an actual VM that exists, and it was created using the arguments I sent across. And you might see here, this was a T2 medium instance. Let's say I want to change this maybe to a different one. So I'm gonna go back to CloudFormation, update the stack, use the same previous template, and then update. So what am I updating here? I want to change the instance type, and let's make it a T2 large to make it even faster for our customers. Next, and then if I want to modify any policies or rollback stack failure options, and then next. So when you preview on the management console, if you scroll all the way down, there is a change set being created for you. You can now preview what is going to change. And the change is only going to affect a web server. And the web server has this ID, which is an EC2 instance. And the replacement is conditional. So conditional means that it only shuts down the instance and then change the instance type. And then after that, bring back the instance again. So you can see here, the update is in progress and was initiated by the user. So right now it's busy shutting down the instance. If you go to the EC2 management console, I will expect this to be shutting down and then to be changing to a new instance type. So you can see it is busy stopping the instance. That is now the automated way of changing the instance type by CloudFormation. Okay, you can now see it's running again, and guess what? It is now on a new instance type. Let's say I have this EC2 instance, and then let's change something like under resources here. Maybe let's change the security group, okay, which is in the instance. So I'm going to open the security group here. On the security group, you will probably remember there is a port opened there, which is port 22 to allow me to connect. And there's also port 80 as well, which allow access on my application. Let's say by chance somebody goes on and edit the inbounds and then deletes the port 80, which is HTTP, and then saves the changes, right? And it looked like nothing happened, but now my customers maybe are not able to connect anymore. So I can go to stack actions and then detect a drift. So when I detect drift, it's going to then, under drift here, is going to run a drift for me and then tell me what's happening. Looks like, guess what? Just now, this was modified, right? I can go and say, I want to view the drift details. This was the expected one, and this is the current one. And on the current one, looks like I don't have port 80 anymore. So you can see the drift is able to assist you in knowing exactly what change or what we are expecting. And of course, if this is just a small change, you can just quickly edit. Like port 80, not a problem. We can just quickly go and edit there. But if it's a big change, it can really cause some problems because you now need to import it as a resource and so on and so forth, which can be a tedious exercise. So recommendation, do not let your teammates or anybody modify your stacks out of band because it gives a lot of trouble. By default, when you click on delete stack, it actually deletes all resources. For example, if I come back this site and under my WordPress 01 and delete the stack, this is going to delete the stack and all of the resources as part of the stack. If I wanted to, I could, of course, protect some of those resources by using a deletion policy.